Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Every leader has a journey. With a leader speak, we're trying to get to know their journey, what are the hurdles they have faced, and how exactly they are trying to overcome that. The things that we can learn from them. I would like to thank you all for joining me today. And it's a pleasure to welcome Upendra. He is the Chief Security Officer at Snap Finance, a leading omnichannel digital first fintech and POS lender, where he leads the cybersecurity while building new platforms to enable growth opportunities. He's a regular speaker at esteemed conferences for Stanford University, Global Big Data Conference, and NFC Forums, European Identity Conference, and many more. He's credited with 95 plus patents issued and pending and has received awards for innovation and leadership. Thank you so much, Upendra, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vandana. Really appreciate it.
It's such a pleasure to have you, Upendra, here.
Thank you. And hope, all of you guys, these are really unprecedented times and all of you guys are safe and healthy over there. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, these are not so good time, but everyone is trying to strive here.
Yeah.
So let's get started with the discussion. We've been interacting for quite a while now, and I want to understand how exactly this function for CISO looks like, because for every organization, for every individual in an organization, this role differs. So how exactly you started your journey as a CISO, and how does this role look like?
Yeah, that is a great question. So what is happening right now because of all the attacks that we are seeing in the industry? The CISO's role has evolved rapidly nowadays. It is seen as a business leader who helps build trust in people, in technology, and in the brand. So that is the role of the CISO right now. So earlier, when the CISO role, it came into being, it was seen as a policy and a compliance approval function. So, for example, if you have, any policy violation, can you please go ahead and make sure that it is approved, reviewed, file a security exception, and take care of any compliance issues that come up, during that journey. But nowadays, it is more seen as a business enabler and as a business leader. And CISOs, that's the trend that we are seeing, that CISOs are adapting to be seen as a business leader. So the technical competencies, for example, the ability to come up with embedded controls with security patterns, making sure that your system is compliant, and then there are InfoSec policies that are written, technical, embedded controls. All those are become table stake right now, and those are table stake expectations from a security leader. Now, security is still seen, as something that is good for the bottom line, the expense side of the bottom line. But people are also looking at security as how can it be good for top line. So that is the shift, essentially, in the CISO's life.
And when we talk about CISO line, there are things that I've heard, like 30, 60, 90-day plan when you join as a new CISO. So for a new CISO to an organization, what would be the 3 advices that you would like to give when they're joining the new organization?
Yeah, so it depends, so 30, 60, 90 days depends on what kind of company you are in and what role you are stepping in as. Are you the first time CISO? Are you taking this role of a big organization? How many business units you have in your organization? So based on that, this, the 30, 60, 90 days of that particular plan actually changes. So let me give you an example. So so if you have to see basically what kind of industry you are in. If you are in a fintech, we have to first do the gap analysis, right? I mean, as an example, What you can do is you can create metrics and measurable goals that helps business quantify risk and build trust. Because as fintech, it's not just protecting the brand, it's also protecting the customers, protecting the stakeholders. We also have to look at the third party risk management. We also have to look at the supply chain attacks, the new kind of attacks that are there. So there are multiple dimensions and multiple regulations and compliance that comes with it. For example, GDPR, CCP, and many more to come. So that becomes your overall information security program. So to do that, first things first is to do the gap analysis. So after you have done gap analysis, you find out whether what the metrics are and the measurable goals. And from the technology perspective, you have to look at what are the things where you have to move the needle based on those 30, 60, 90 days. What are the immediate problems that you solve? And when you are looking at technology, for example, you have to say that, hey, what are the top three things that I need to address? It might be MFA for all users, automated patch management, just have a great endpoint detection and response or antivirus system. From the process perspective, creating that 30, 60, 90-day program, you look at partners, partnering and embedding yourselves within the organization and within the process. And from organizational level, build strong partnerships. So talk to as many people, as many business leaders within those 30, 60, 90 days. Go across the spectrum. Security is not just a technology organization, or security is not just for processes, or not just for people. The security is across the organization. So, and security is a team sport, right? It's not a solo patience game. So it's a team sport. So show how organizations win if security wins, and give credit to team members, both internal as well as external, who are part of the quote unquote team. Again, 30, 60, 90 days depends on what kind of industry you are in, what kind of organization you are in, whether you are inheriting something. Do a gap analysis, find out on three dimensions: technology, process, organizational level. Make sure that the security is a team sport, partner and win as a team.
Very well said, Upendra. And now, when we talk about this whole strategy, working with different teams, people have started to realize that security needs to have a seat on the table or seat on the board. So,
Yep.
how exactly you can handle the board, especially when it comes to the budget for cybersecurity? People say that there is a budget for security, but still there are organizations which are not getting the enough budget to handle security, and that's how we are seeing all the breaches that are happening.
You are absolutely right. So when you talk about board, right, let's take a step back and what is the primary job of board, all right? There are two primary functions of any board, right? The first primary function is governance. So they will govern the entire organization. And then the second thing is oversight. So you're absolutely right. With all the news and the boards, typically, all the news that is happening in the industry, for board, security is very important, but they are very uncertain about what are the fundamental security issues, and how are they related to the business risk. So, again, taking a step back, communicating security in terms of business risk, like, hey, what is the risk to the customers if this particular security attack happens? Let's not use the jargons that, hey, there is a cross-site scripting on the side, or you are not protecting with the right algorithm, or those kinds of questions. That is not what board is there for. So what we have to do as CISOs is look at those real technical problems. Most of the CISOs are very technical. They have either come from operations background, they have come from software engineering background, and they have raised up to this particular level. So a very important transition that CISOs have to make, and that requires lots of work, is how do you communicate security in terms of business risk? So if we say that, hey, because of XYZ, lack of XYZ security control, what is the risk to the customer? What is the risk to the investor? What is the risk to the products and services that we have? Any risk to the growth of the company? Competition, what is competition doing? Any regulatory risk? So try to stay away from using the technical jargons like encryptions and cross-site scripting and all that, but try to quantify in terms of the business risk. So if we do that, this will help board accomplish their job, which is governance and oversight, and the CISO's job is to make that particular job easy. So translating that particular language from actual technical stuff that CISOs are very familiar with and bringing it to a level where it is communicated as a business risk, that's the transition CISOs have to do.
Totally on par. Because if we don't understand what exactly the board might look for, we would never be able to communicate. Like we say in DevSecOps world, that you have to have both the approaches, top down and bottoms up. If the people who are working on ground cannot explain it to the leaders what exactly they're going to be achieving, nobody would understand how exactly you will make a case that I want to buy this tool or I want to go for this technology. Yeah, totally on par.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're
thank
absolutely.
you. Yeah. On the same lines, I've been very fascinated with the work that you've been doing as a CISO and as an advisor to many companies. So I would really like to know how exactly this advisor role works, and what are the things that an advisor should keep in mind when they are taking up this role, because it's a huge responsibility that we are taking.
You are absolutely right. I mean, we are taking huge responsibility as an advisor, and it is our utmost duty to make sure that the advice is done or it's given in a way that is useful to the company, right? Typically, when the companies, reach out for any advisory role to you, or to any one of us is what I meant. They're looking for some sense of direction. Why? Because they know that you have, come across this particular journey. And because of that, you know where you want to go. So, typically the way to do that is that we have to look at the patterns. So there are going to be the industry that a particular company plays in. So when we are looking to take as an advisory role, first things first is to make sure that you know that particular industry, because there is no point in advising a company where you have zero expertise. So keep it very simple, very basic, is that make sure that you know about that particular industry. It is not just knowing about the technology again. So I deliberately stayed away from using the word technology. It's about knowing about that particular industry or an industry segment. For example, there could be a cloud security company, or there could be a cloud and AI mixed company, or there could be DevOps or DevSecOps companies where they might need, or application security companies where they might come and knock on your door to get some advice on what they are looking for, right? So they are looking for some seasoned player who can help, guide the vision of that particular company. So when you are looking at that, it's a very big responsibility, as you correctly said. So to stay true to whatever role has been expected, when we elevate ourselves and when we look forests instead of looking at the individual trees, we have to see what pattern you are seeing in that particular industry, where the industry is going, and what are the different players in that industry, in your network, outside of your network. Read more about where that industry is going, assimilate it, make it your own, and then think about what to say, and what to advise on to these companies, because they're going to listen to your advice, and it is a pretty big responsibility. So to summarize, when you are taking, or anybody is taking an advisory role, make sure that you know the industry. That is number one. Number two, see if you have an ability to look at the forest instead of at the trees, and look at the patterns. Number three, see if you can predict where the industry is going. And then number four, use your discretion by networking with the people, reading about it, and then give the best advice that you can.
Thank you so much for sharing wonderful insights with me and with all of us who's going to listen to this podcast. Thank you so much, Upendra, for joining me and spending your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandana, for having me. Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank you.